Hey, I'm TV and Movie Guy on Instagram, and I'll be reviewing all of the MCU leading up to the new movie Deadpool and Wolverine in July. Gonna try and get all the reviews in before then, but we'll see. I'll be watching the MCU in release order so that anyone that hasn't watched before can watch along with me. I won't be talking about movies or shows until I get to them. I'll only discuss any of the shows or movies up to that point. I'll be reviewing them assuming that you're either very familiar with the movie or had just watched it. I won't be going scene by scene, basically retelling the show or movie. Just go watch it at that point. I have not read any of the comics, so I don't have that base of knowledge. All I know is what they put on the screen, which I think helps so much with my review today for Iron Man 3. If you don't want to be spoiled, then come back later. All right, allons-y. All right, overall review for this is our third installment of Iron Man, our fourth time seeing him in one of these movies in a heavy role, and it's the character we have. It's exploring a new, more of his character. It's kind of going more in depth into who Tony Stark really is, I think, in this one. And explain it to me like I'm 5. So, for this movie, Tony is having anxiety attacks from his experiences in the Avengers. A terrorist, the Mandarin, is randomly bombing places and broadcasting it to the world, taking credit for it. Killian wants the government to use his healing solution Extremis for the military so that soldiers that lose limbs can instantly grow them back. Tony calls out the Mandarin but fails, and his suit flies him to Tennessee, where he learns that the Mandarin bombs are people overdosing on Extremis and aren't actually bombs. He tracks the broadcast of where the Mandarin is to Miami to find out that the Mandarin is actually a puppet and Killian the puppeteer. Tony then faces Killian and his Extremis army to save Pepper, who was injected with Extremis. And to rate this movie on my tier, it's good. It's still good. It was good the first time I saw it, and it's stayed right there. And like I said, I think it's mostly because I didn't go into it with any expectations for a certain character that I know a lot of people that have read comics are mad about. But I think they got their just desserts in terms of how that panned out, but I won't go into that. Don't want to spoil things ahead. So, the Mandarin, Ben Kingsley. I can't believe they got Ben Kingsley. It's, again, Marvel just astonishes me with who they're able to get for certain roles. And to continue to do so, especially with this kind of role, because like how the Mandarin starts out in this movie, you can easily see why Ben Kingsley is like perfect. But then I'm sure he got the whole script and he saw what he was going to end up looking like. And for him to say yes to a role where he just becomes comical is amazing to me. Leading up to this movie, I remember the trailers and commercials and how they portray the Mandarin. And he was so intimidating. I was psyched for it. It seemed like an amazing villain. And like I said, not knowing anything about the comics, I had no idea who the Mandarin was and like what to expect. And having no expectation, I found him being a false villain a great story twist for this movie because I got the intimidation and anticipation I needed from a villain for them to go ahead and just like kind of do that twist in the end of second, early third act. And it worked for me because in the comics, Mandarin is like a true like villain to Tony Stark. So people going into the movie thought, oh, this is the Mandarin. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I'm going to act like this is the real deal. And not knowing anything about it, I was okay with it. So just all the broadcasts of him I thought were amazing. Just the voice acting and his portrayal is great. You'll never see me coming. Ready for another lesson. Just those lines. And I know I've bothered some of my coworkers with that before, especially the fortune cookie one. Fortune cookies. They sound Chinese. They look Chinese, but they're actually an American invention. That's why they're hollow, full of lies, and leave a bad taste in your mouth. I don't know. Just the voice is amazing. And then he just is English once you find out that he's actually not really the Mandarin. And I just love his character. I'm all about Ben Kingsley and Trevor Slattery. So then moving on to Tony in this one, with his anxiety and bad dreams, like I said, we see him somewhat broken and not able to like be the cocky, cocksure kind of person that he was in the first 3 movies that we've seen him in. Not able to just brush it off with a quip. There was a lot of time to himself in this movie, so he was just alone with his thoughts and just having to deal with it himself. And it was interesting to see him unsure of himself and without being surrounded by his suit and suits throughout most of the middle of the movie. And I really like the story point of he doesn't know what to do without his suits, what he's already established. And then Harley has to like give him that boost, just remind him that you're a genius. You can just build something. You're a mechanic. And I know it's not that easy in real life, but it's a movie. So just like, oh yeah, light bulb. Yeah, I can do that. No problem now. And then we actually got to see the president in this one, which was interesting because why haven't we seen him in any of the movies up till now? Like, especially the Avengers. You would think New York's being overrun by aliens. Why doesn't the president have any kind of say or show up at all? But with the types, yeah. I liked how he was just like a pawn in this movie, and the vice president was like gunning for his job because of the Extremis project. And I was trying to figure out like why exactly, what was Killian's motivation in this movie, what he wanted exactly. I think it was just to have the legitimacy for his Extremis program. And he just co-opted the Mandarin to excuse any like overdoses that essentially became the bombs for the Mandarin. But yeah, I assume that the president wasn't on board with Extremis, and that's why they probably went to the vice president with it, who was in on it because of his daughter or granddaughter that had a limb lost, or maybe not lost, but just born without it. I don't know. They didn't go into it. They just showed her for one clip, and that was about it. But yeah, it wasn't clear in the movie, but I think that's what happened anyway. Poor Happy in this movie, Happy Hogan. He's trying to be a good head of security, but no one's wearing their badges. He wants to watch Downton Abbey, but he's in a coma and misses a couple episodes. Tough. And then this is a Christmas movie. Like, you wouldn't think it, being mostly in California and Miami, but you've got a little snow when we're in Tennessee, and then you got that big stuffed bunny in the driveway that Pepper does not like and Tony harps on. And that thing just looked weird. I didn't know anyone would make a bunny so big. I don't even know if it was real, if that was a real prop or if it was just like CGI. And then, yeah, at the end on the rig, there was a tree and then like the fireworks. And Tony's like, what the heck, it's Christmas, and gives Jarvis the command for the clean slate protocol and blows up a lot of those suits. So the villain in this, the real villain, Killian, I think he did well. He was really creepy both before and after the makeover. Uh, Creepy before just because like he was very slimy, like getting into the elevator, just wanting to pitch his product, and creepy after because he's just like, oh, I'm hot now. I can get away with like just schmoozing up to Pepper and doing whatever I want. Is just weird. The post-credit scene in this one was a little funny. Him on the couch for a therapy session talking to Bruce Banner, and Bruce was asleep and didn't hear any of it. Doesn't have the temperament to be a psychiatrist. I mean, yep, just typical, like, I have emotional issues or I have anger issues because I'm the Hulk. Like I said, just a little bit funny. Okay, and then I'll also talk about the one-shots. Item 47. It was basically just a couple days after the Battle of New York in the Avengers, and it's really just about a couple, and they have one of the alien weapons, and they rob banks with it, and then they're found out by S.H.I.E.L.D., and then S.H.I.E.L.D. just recruits them to the Force. It's really just a quick, fun one-shot. Nothing really all that great about it. But then, All Hail the King one-shot. I would highly recommend watching this one. It's good. It's good enough to be in a movie. The scenes that were in it, and it's more of Trevor Slattery, Ben Kingsley, the Mandarin. Again, I can't get enough of his character, so I really enjoyed it. But it's basically him in prison after being taken in for basically taking the rap for the bombings or being a terrorist, inciting panic, something like that, whatever his charge was. But like I said, I can't get enough of him, so he's in prison, and then he's in the middle of like an interview with a guy, and the guy ends up being from the Ten Rings and works for the Mandarin, and it suggests that we're likely going to see more of the Ten Rings and see who the actual Mandarin is. So, the Ten Rings were in the first Iron Man. It was they were the guys that were holding Tony Stark in the cave. And then we saw them. Yeah, and in this one shot, but they were also like their logo was in the broadcastings of the Mandarin throughout Iron Man 3. But yeah, it's very well done. It's like 14 minutes, so it's a good chunk. And you also get Sam Rockwell reprising his role as Justin Hammer, so he's in the same jail or prison. All right. That's everything I had to say about the movies, the movie, and the one-shots. And then I'll go on to my segments now. So, segment, Who's That Little Dude? And in this movie, it's Harley, the kid that reminds Tony that he doesn't need a suit. He's a genius. He can just build stuff. He told Tony where the mom of the guy that died in Tennessee was, and that's where he got all the info he needed from from the mom, and that basically just opened up everything to him and helped him figure out everything he needed to in order to like just piece everything together. And then Harley also like charged up the Iron Man suit while Tony was in Miami, and then it finally flew back to him. So Harley's the little dude. All right, best and worst. I didn't have a best line. Nothing really stood out for me for that. In terms of best scene, I really enjoyed the Tony Superfan scene where he's in the Superfan's van, and it's the actor from the Mindy Project. He's one of the OBGYNs, and I love him on there, but him as a super fan of Tony Stark with a tattoo on his arm. Oh, it's hilarious. Just, yeah. And Tony needs Gary, and Gary needs Tony. I love that scene. It's great. Best line, I would say. Oh, I guess I did have the best line. Just all the Mandarin like broadcast lines that I like referenced earlier and just mocked or tried to use my impression on. I loved all of those, so I think those were the best lines. In terms of jokes, this was a funny movie. There were a lot of good jokes. So Tony telling Happy, "Is this the forehead of security?" when he's on the call and can't like. He's like that close to the camera. And then when Maya shows up to Tony and Pepper's house, Tony's like, "There's not some 12-year-old kid in the car," and she's like, "He's 13." Tony jumps and gets me every time. Jarvis, I seem to get to the end of the sentence and say the wrong cranberry. It's his accent mixed with the word cranberry just worked there. And then this was very hard to pick up, but Trevor Slattery tells the women not to go in the bathroom for like 20 minutes. And then Tony puts those women in there and they react like, "Ew, oh jeez." That's a good one to like if you don't remember that, I would suggest going back and watching it. In terms of worst, the worst scene I thought was Harley when he first like goes into the garage and sees Tony. He acts as if like he doesn't know who Tony is, and then completely flips and hands him like a newspaper showing that he's thought to be dead. So like, I don't know why he wouldn't freak out as soon as he just opened the door. He knows who Tony Stark is. In terms of worst line was from Pepper. It's toward the end, like she just blew up Killian, and she's like, "Oh my God, that was really violent." That's just terrible. Worst joke I thought was, "Honestly, I hate working here. They are so weird." It worked a couple times I watched this, but just it doesn't have the staying power. It doesn't hold up well to like the third view and on. And all right, what happened to the bad in this one? Pepper blew him up with one of Tony's weapons and her extremis. And then loose threads from this movie. I mean, Tony blew up a lot of his suits, but I don't think he blew up all of them. I think he said, "I'm going to blow up most of my suits for you." Or so. What's he going to do like without all the suits? I don't know. I won't even count that one. The only loose thread I can think of is the one from All Hail the King, where it seems to tease that we'll see the real Mandarin and revisit the Ten Rings. And then no loose ends were tied up from the other movies. Cameos. We had a couple of cameos. We saw Yinsen again. So he was the guy that helped Tony Stark, like helped fix him up and just fix Tony up in the cave in the first Iron Man. He was in Switzerland and just had like a quick 30-second clip with him. In the first movie, he says that they'd actually met in Switzerland, and he was referring to what we just saw. And then, sorry, there was like something like a bubble or something. We saw Stan Lee as a judge for the Miss Chattanooga contest. It was really quick. It was an okay cameo. I mean, not one of his best. Might be his worst, though. I don't know. It was okay, though. And then there were some like media heads you might recognize from all the newsreels after like the Mandarin's broadcasts. All right. I didn't see any questions come through. Go ahead and, if you have any, leave them in the comments or email me at tvandmovieguideproductions@gmail.com. So that's all I had. Again, feel free to ask any questions, leave any comments. I'm on Instagram at tvandmovieguy, where I review TV shows and movies, shorter reviews on more than just the MCU. I'm only doing these kinds of reviews for the MCU right now, but still watching other stuff in between the viewings. Just a reminder, I've never worked on any engagement or counted any votes or ballots for any award shows, and the opinions are my own and do not reflect those or that of my employers. My next review is going to be Thor: The Dark World, so go ahead and watch that and look for my next review. All right, see ya.